Listen, let me add to this. Rick, you're on fire with these points. We ought to play that CNN sometime, because I knew that's where you were going, that crossfire. This is what's so incredible about this. Every day I read the newspaper, and it's this person charged with conspiracy to help somebody rob a bank, or this guy charged with conspiracy because they got together and had meetings about robbing this auto parts store. Of course there's conspiracy, but when government's involved, we're told it's impossible. Now, how ridiculous is that? All the conspiracy theory is now is not believing confirmed liars. And this is what's dangerous. This is why the evil is so smart. As they allow this corruption to continue, it then discredits the entire system, turns the people against the system, and then only the corrupt are in there, and then the globalist can basically fully implode things. You see, the globalists have a leg up on us for one reason. They don't mind wrecking things. In fact, they like it. They don't have any rules. They study how to manipulate. And that's why they're so hard to beat, is because they don't play by the rules. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'd say is I wondered if you saw the movie Thrive, what you thought of that. And then finally, why aren't there any CIs? We need to explain why aren't confidential informants coming out like pilots or biologists that make these horrible things, and, you know, and why aren't they coming out? Don't they have a conscience?
Well, let me tell you, Jim Keith was talking to some of them, and God, he wrote Black Helicopters Over America, Black Helicopter Strike Force, The New World Order, in the early 90s. And they killed him. There's no doubt about it, because he did have the informants. And that's why the minute I get something that's powerful and confirmed, I put it out, because it's like I told the D.C. madam. I said, you got to get all that out or destroy it. And I said, don't tell me anything off air. I don't want to be killed. And you know, because she had top people visiting her and her women. And it's the same thing. They have an NSA program that's been partially declassified, where they spy on millions of government and corporate employees. And they let them know they're being spied on, their phones, everything. So they've got computers watching them, and it's just that fear. And they've seen so many whistleblowers come out. I mean, Sybil Edmonds came out and heard the government commanding al-Qaeda on 9/11. And she was threatened with arrest if she told the public. She went ahead and broke her gag order later. So see, the problem is there have been a lot of whistleblowers, Rick.
What conspiracy? I would reject this whole conspiracy theorist label and say we are whistleblowers. That's all we are. I mean, Building 7 on 9/11, these are smoking guns, just absolute smoking guns. The put options that were taken out in the stock market before the 9/11, I mean, these are smoking guns. How could people miss this stuff? You know, it's just, it's amazing that they can be spraying over the sky in checkerboards and people, they're missing it.
And then we've got the government programs where they're doing it. And then they go, oh, look, that's just condensation trail. Yeah, a lot of them are. And are there kooks that, you know, think that everything is that? Yeah, but that doesn't matter. There is a giant geoengineering program. It's been partially declassified. And the soil levels of these barium salts, aluminum's going up. And Monsanto's coming out with a seed line that can live in it. The government is hoarding giant underground seed vaults everywhere. The Rockefellers, the UN are doing it. Great points, Rick. Good to hear from you. I should have asked Rick if his fellow prosecutors are starting to wake up. Steve, you're up next. Then we'll get, oh, no, Joey's first, then Steve, then Rick, then Rodney, and others. We'll be right back. Prisonplanet.tv, GCNlive.com. Okay, I want to go back to your calls in this segment and the next, and then continue with news into the next hour with your calls. And Gerald Celente, who we normally have on about once a month, but he's been on a couple times a week in the last few weeks with this MF Global, which is a big deal. You heard Peter Schiff earlier. Yeah, we're just going to, you know, the system's saying, keep your money. That is new. Peter agreed. That's a new level. And people are like 3 weeks later, like, where's the money? They're just like, don't worry about it. But it was in our private accounts. Don't worry about it. Don't be a conspiracy theorist. When the men in suits take your money, that's the way it is, okay? And this is the main advisor to Obama. Very creepy. That's the thing about corruption. It doesn't stop. It gets worse and worse, or it gets better. It doesn't sit in one spot. And right now, they're running all over us because the average American is laying down to it. I don't like being run over. I don't like being conned and manipulated. I mean, I literally lose sleep at night wanting to fight it. And I'm a weirdo. I'm an American. My ancestors were just like I am. This country was built by people that were aggressive and wanted freedom and who weren't criminals. And now look what we've become. We have been bathed in corruption. We think it's funny. Well, you're going to find out why being a bunch of ninnies is not fun. You're going to find out what happens when a country falls. I don't think we can stop that now. But we can try to have a controlled crash landing. That's better than going straight in. I'm the eternal optimist, but it's bad. Because our people are demonic. They are unawake. They are unconscious. I want to go to your calls. And I'm not talking about those of us that are awake, and none of us are perfect. Just the general malaise is so scary because they're in a trance. How do we break them out of the trance? We do that by ourselves recognizing how out of control it is. I mean, when you read thousands of public documents where criminals in our government did lethal chemical, biological, radiological testing on troops, foster kids, black people, you name it, and it was sanctioned, you have to ask, who did that in government? Well, it was the shadow government, the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about, the last caller mentioned. And then you've got to know it's much worse than it was back then today. They're playing God. And you, Obama, all this, who cares? That's all window dressing. What's going on in the shadow government? And when you start researching it, it is not pretty. And of course, then once you face these facts, you're going to get chills. I just got chills right now, just thinking about this. These are killers running things. And you know why they leave me here on air? Then we're going to go to break, and I promise I'm going to Joey first and Steve. Because it's true. They like to track everything, and that's the system's rationale is that, well, at least we know where the patriots are. It's a gauge. But also the system's doesn't want to scare people too much yet. They're getting you ready for telescreens. They're getting ready for kill switches. They're getting ready for checkpoints. It's all starting to roll out, and they just want to incrementally do it. You see, I'm so prominent. What did Jim Garrison say over and over again? He said, you got to stay in the sunshine. You got to stay vocal. You got to stay public because that's where you're safe. But more importantly than even that is trust in God. Trust in God, because the system still will kill people like Alex Jones or Congressman McDonald. They're capable of that. But again, McDonald was polished and twinkle-eyed, and that scared him. He was slicker than Alex Jones. That's why they killed him dead in a hammer after deep torture, of course. But, all right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Alex Jones.
Coming up, medical mafia using financial leverage to enforce children's vaccination on poor families. Neocons plan regime change throughout the Middle East and North Africa 20 years ago. Report investors, China buying up U.S. farmland at an alarming rate. Fukushima nuclear power plant director steps down suddenly due to illness. More cesium found in rice harvested in Fukushima, Japan. ClimateGate 2. That's just some of what's coming up. We'll also get into more secret loans discovered. Right now, let's go back to the calls. Let's go to Joey in Connecticut. Joey, thanks for holding.
Oh, yes. Alex, this is, Joey from Thomaston, Connecticut. This is home of the famous Seth Thomas clocks that were set worldwide.
Yeah.
I have a CPS story to share with you. Now, I spoke to you 3 years ago about this. This is my partner, Karen, the mother of our 2 boys, had a brain tumor when she was age 16. And now, under Connecticut's predictive neglect law, they moved right into the hospital and took the children away from both of us, predicting neglect.
Yeah, that's pre-crime. They just say, we have a computer actuary. Of course, why don't they use their own predictive system on themselves? 17, that's a good report to do, 17 times more likely to abuse children themselves. sexually, 5 times physically, general physical. Oh, but no, they're not going to use the predictive system on themselves, so they took your children.
Yes. Now, I'd like to explain this to you very simply. Illness isn't against the law. Illness should be accommodated, and they're not doing this. See, Connecticut here, it's called Department of Children and Families, DCF. They are taking federal dollars, so they have to abide by the federal mandates. They're supposed to have had a federal coordinator in place overseeing them to make sure that the services they were rendering to Karen were in compliance.
But the system, they don't even follow their own rules. It's all meant to be broken by the criminals, and because they are pedophile murderers. I mean, if you want to find the largest group of absolute murdering, lower than whale you-know-what garbage, it's them. And we have to first recognize the government is chock full, especially in those areas, of the lowest of the low, and those are eugenics courts, and the medical tyranny coming. If your child is 1 pound overweight, they're going to take them to their rape rooms. I'm sorry.
I'd like you to hear this. You're going to find this interesting. Now, reasonable effort is something that the state is supposed to do. Now, they consider reasonable effort sending Karen to psychotherapy for something which is medically unfixable. She had a brain tumor removed. There's no psychobabble that's ever going to put her to a condition where she was before.
But see, that's how, no. Now, under the system, when you break a leg or something, you get Prozac. You didn't hear? No. It's all, they give troops who are sick from DU drugs, psychotropics. This is the brave new world. Like Bill Gates said, he said, we kill your grandmother, we hire 10 teachers. And the teachers all clapped. Oh, murder people, give us money. As if you're going to get money, you idiots. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, I'll pray for you. Is there any way to get the other children back that the demons took?
Well, see, no, because, see, they're tarring me with the same brush. They're not, I'm supposed to be specially protected under this ADA law, but they're tarring me with the same brush.
No. Just because they act liberal, the real racist eugenicist, they hate handicap. God bless you, sir. I'm sorry to hear this happen to you. This is why they do it at the bottom line. Not just because they're pedophiles and sadists and scum. And that's what they are. Those aren't just words. On average, they're the biggest group of them. That's where you find the most of them. Thick as thieves. It's because when they grab people who are disabled, they get double, triple, quadruple federal money. It's all about cash. We'll be right back. If you just tuned in, we had a caller earlier where their 16-year-old had a brain tumor. So they said the other kids were at risk and just went ahead and took them all. And that's what they do now. If one child gets hurt or has a disease, they then say, well, you're poor and you're at risk, we're taking them all. And they're just getting back to what they did until the 1940s. In 35 states, I show government newsreels in Endgame. 35 states, if you made a B-, black, white, they didn't care, Hispanic, didn't matter, they would take you and sterilize women, and young girls and boys. Sometimes they'd keep you. And the abuse and the bodies they've dug up at the orphanages all over the world. They've got another big U.S. university with the wife going public saying the coach was raping little boys in front of her. Evil wants to take over government and positions of power because no one believes a big university would do something. No one believes a police department would do something. No one believes the Texas Youth Commission would do something. No one believes they would arrest half the black people or more in the town of Tulia, setting them up on record to put them in jail. But they do. One thing I wanted to say to that state police guy when he pulled me